We defy the odds every day. Please turn my anxiety into prayer and my hiding into dancing and my sorrow into the sacred. And in Jesus' name, my mind will not be locked.
You're one of the most creative people I've ever met. But what was behind that? Did that go back to growing up on a farm and having to entertain yourself?
There was no counseling therapy for childhood trauma. So I escaped to my imagination. I could be anything other than what my reality was. And it was just understood that Kim talks to herself. And to this day, I talk to myself.
You were listening to the Mind Shift podcast. My name is Erwin McManus, and I'm sitting here with my incredible mother, Frances Kimberly Lunsford McManus, Mama Kim. Or, for the people who know her best, we just call her Kimmy.
Kimmy.
How you doing?
I'm Mimi, too.
Mimi Tsujuno, yeah.
Yeah, I'm good, Aaron.
Can you say hi to everybody listening who has begged for you to come on for years?
What a trip. I'm in podcast land, and I've never ever done a podcast ever.
Never? This is your first one?
Yes.
That's amazing. That's exciting.
Is it okay to be nervous or awkward or like?
Yes. That is our brand.
And unpolished.
A little nervous and awkward and unpolished.
I'm here with you for the first time ever.
With me. Just me and you. Mama Kim. Welcome to the pod. You brought the biggest Bible I have ever seen.
I have a big.
Do you have it?
I have it.
Okay, we get it for her.
I have it. What is wrong with having a Bible?
It's nothing wrong, but we love your Bible.
It's also
you have had that Bible my entire life, I want to think.
Large print Bible.
Large print. But she had it just sprawled out, notes everywhere. Did you study for this podcast?
You know, I study. I'm a student.
You read the Bible every morning, early.
I meet with God. I conference with God. I get up super early before dawn. Way early. I'm just that one, that finds quiet, and I find God.
So you talk about conferencing with God. Ever since I've known you, which is my entire life, thanks for being my mom, whenever I've come over, early in the morning, you're always the first one up. You wake up when the rooster crows.
Yeah.
But is that a little bit of just how you grew up?
I grew up on the farm, and you did your chores. And of course I rebelled. I didn't want to do any of that. I just wanted to sleep like everybody does. But then it gets in you, and then I realize, now that my biological clock gets up at 4 in the morning or whatever time,
4 in the morning.
Find my brain is wide awake, and I'm alive.
So long before the David Goggins of the world, the Alex Hormozis, all these guys who are saying wake up I don't think Hormozi says that, but all of these guys who say wake up at 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, get there before dawn, little did they know, Mama Kim has been getting up, reading her Bible,
doing my chores, my farming chores. And it's so funny because I see the weirdest things at 3:30 in the morning, at 4 in the morning. You see people who are creepies outside the window.
You should say creepies?
Creepos. I'm like, I just want to go out and say, what are you doing on the street at 3:30 in the morning? 4 o'clock. Because it's just whenever I wake up and get up. I do laundry.
You do everything.
And all the while I do everything, I'm also ideating. I'm also thinking of my work. So it becomes like work is a joy because I'm in that space.
But how important is it for you to start your day off like that in the scriptures?
Survival for me. It's survival for me because so many things are so noisy around me early on. Like, do this. But if I'm already grounded and I'm like, okay, and 2024 kicked all of our butts, right? I keep hearing that 2024 kicked, but I just had to keep centered. I had to keep focused. I'm like, okay, I'm not doing well, but I know if I do this and this, God will meet me in this. So it became like
what were the this and this moments?
The this and this was so simple in that the suffering and the supply, the need and the supply. I'm like, God, I can't, this is hard stuff.
Yeah.
Seeing your dad hurt, seeing relationships altered, seeing people suffer. And then there would be great supply, like the work I do. So much of it is fundraising, and it just wasn't in line with my goals.
Well, can we talk a little bit about the work you do?
I am talking about the work I do,
Well,
getting up early, doing the work.
I'm not sure how to attack this, right? Because everybody knows you're my mom. Or not how to attack this. I don't know how to get into this because everybody knows you're my mom. I hope everybody knows you're my mom.
I don't know. I keep hearing Maya Rudolph on Saturday Night Live during Mother's Day. I'm your mama. I'm your mama.
But I think we have to do a little bit of a background because I think a lot of people know your story through us. But can you tell your story?
I always love hearing you guys translate all of the nuances of the story that I grew up with, and I'm so grateful.
You're a main character on our podcast, even though you haven't been on it. The question is, tell us a little bit about how you grew up. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
So, do you know I have lived through 13 presidential administrations.
So you're really young.
So young.
So young.
And in that, I've seen lots of movements, lots of crashes, lots of magnificent things. The World Wide Web, all the things. But then we've gone through these ages, and I realize I've lived a life parallel to greatness, disaster, natural disaster, all the things that has led up to this time where we're dealing with these fires in Los Angeles. But mine was also a fire, a life on fire. Very young, 7 years old, family fell apart, 10 kids. I was number 6 of 10. At that time, my mother only had 9. I mean, I went to foster care at 7 years old with my sister Renee, and my mother had another baby while I was in foster care, which was absolutely against all, like I thought, human, wisdom. But then it was then just being a kid in the system, a kid in the system. It was the brokenness of my parents put me in foster care, and I was put then. I literally drove past the group home, a LIDA group home for children, and whatever group homes are now, then it was a dairy farm with hundreds of children milking cows and then going to school and sleeping like any orphan that you would think, from the...
And that's how you grew up?
That's how my destiny was when I left my mom.
Okay.
But there was a family, a farming family in North Carolina who wanted us. And they needed help on the farm. They needed, my dad worked at night, so in the factory, so he wanted someone with his wife. They had already fostered 3 children, the last of which had just gotten married. And this was the last 2 they were going to have, so I was their last. And my sister was, she was a little older than I was. So Renee and I went to foster care. And, I remember the sedan. I remember the paper bag that had everything that we owned in it. I remember I came there. I had black teeth. And for a kid at 7, third grade, going into third grade, black teeth, and then one red sweater that they had bought me. And I just remember hiding behind Ruth. Ruth was this farmer. They were both children of the Great Depression. And so that, what that made me? A child of the Great Depression through them, because they passed down all of those lies and painful experiences, and they just translated it into their home life. So therefore, I couldn't take a bath. I couldn't take a shower. I was allowed to take a bath 1 day a week in an inch of water. And then all the things. I wasn't allowed to flush the toilet. I had to go to the outside toilet. And a lot of it came because we were just poor white trash. And so then just growing up in that environment made me resent it. My sister resented 100 times worse. She decided a couple of years into it, I'm running away. And so she ran away, and then I left. I was left there to farm. And look, we were hard labor workers. We were like 8 hours a day in the tomato fields in the summer. And I just remembered learning how to get strong, how to get tough, how to stay healthy, how to be dirty, how to be filthy, how to survive like going to school stinking. That's really difficult. So when I was in your house and I was walking around your house and it smelled so lovely and it was so clean and it was so beautiful, and I realized that is all gone. That is all excommunicated from our lives. That lack of, the lacking, always lacking something that we needed. And so I spend my life just in gratitude where God has brought us.
No, I think, growing up your son, it makes me very emotional.
And I'm looking at you emotional because of, I don't tell you how impossible it was to survive that. And then it's really hard to translate it. That's why I can't write the book. I can't get it out. I can't get it out.
Who would have thought 5 minutes in we're both crying?
I can't get it out. I mean, like the book. It's the book.
Tell me about the book, because I think there's so much here.
It's the impossible thing because when you say, Mom, go to counseling, you're saying, Mom.
Oh, we're going there.
No. Listen. No, you say, Mom, go to counseling.
No, I say, Mom, go to therapy, not counseling.
Therapy. I'm like, no. How dare you? It's the thing that I know will unlock the thing that will complete the story and how to put all the pieces together. And so I can't.
We're going to have to take little breaks of laughter, because
Okay.
I don't know if I can handle the emotionality of it, because, I think
When God's
hold on, you can't preach while I'm crying. You got to time out. No, I think a couple of things. Your son.
So all the cameras are off. Are the
No,
cameras?
they're all on. They're rolling. They're just gonna cut around it,
Okay, cut around it.
or leave it
know how
all
this-
in.
I don't know how all this
We're really
goes.
in their hands now. Jacob's gonna sit through this, leader, or Austin.
I don't know that.
Well, I think, okay, I got to break it up a little bit, because one, I don't think, you're getting there. We're circling on your story, but you grew up in the farmlands of Asheville, North Carolina, in the
Outside
mountains.
of so Asheville, the city of Asheville, then you go out to east
What,
the
like
side, and then
45 minutes outside?
no, 13 miles,
So not
not far, but there's all farm.
Well, in LA, that's a 2-hour drive.
No,
But
it's
in
beautiful.
Asheville, it's actually 14
It's so
minutes.
beautiful. It's so pristine, and
It's beautiful. It's
I was
stunning.
nestled when at the height of like being bitter toward God. This was in my 40s. You were already born. You were being raised. It was hard to raise a son and feel so inadequate to raise you. And I remember driving down when we lived in Whittier, and I said, God, why am I 25 years behind in development? Why am I 20 years behind everybody else who's figured all this out now? And I'm in motherhood and I can't figure anything out. Why was I exiled to that rotten farm and with people who didn't know how to love me? And why did my mom never come get me? So that's asking all the questions. And God so clearly said to me, I put you there to hide you.
Mm.
And then it totally reframed my perspective of my whole childhood. I hid you from drugs, and I hid you from alcoholism, and I hid you from the domestic violence that your mother was having to endure, and from mental illness, and from lack of education, and no work, and living off the government endlessly. I hid you from those things. And I realized God was saving me every day of my life, and I didn't even know it. That the work was hard, but I was safe. Nobody was coming after me. Nobody was trying to get me pregnant. Nobody was trying to beat me up. And it made me realize, it's those moments I said, there'll never be a man who ever lays a hand on me. And never a man has. There'll never be a time where I put myself in a place where I'm in a drunken state where I cannot make sober strong decisions. And I never have been.
No. I mean, I grew up.
That all was formed in that place where God was hiding me.
It really does feel, I like, I'm going to take a time out. We're going to breathe. We got to talk about funny things too. So just if you're listening to this, I think we make each other more emotional.
We do.
But we're very similar.
We are very similar.
Like a lot of my public facing stuff is with Dad, but we're probably more similar than me and Dad.
And you make me laugh all the time.
Me and Dad have funny mannerisms that were similar because we spend so much time together. Like I literally, I think like him now. Some people say they speak in, once they start learning Spanish or different language, they're dreaming. And I think in Erwin. I'm like, wait, no, I'm doing Dad things. I need to stop doing this Dad thing.
You do Dad things, but I think one of the things I'm so proud of you the most is that you are your own man.
I appreciate that. I think
you're your own man.
Okay.
You're beyond me. You're beyond your dad.
Well, I want to speak to a few. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I want to speak to a few things. One, I don't think that. I do think I truly believe God set you apart. I mean, we'll get deeper into some of those things and like those maybe those moments of like God's presence in your life that were just so physical. Like I don't know if like some people, I think they experience God in a unique, esoteric, more metaphorical way, but you really have like physical manifestations of experiencing God's love, because it doesn't make sense why a church was built in this little tiny, it's not even a town, it's a road in the mountains, and there was a church built across the street from your house.
Zion Hill. Missionary Baptist.
And then you walked across the street one day.
Church.
So I want to get into that.
Your dad and I were married there.
I know you were married. The dad was the only
I know.
non-white person that had ever entered that church.
I know. They looked at your dad and they said, "Look at his eyes," as though they had never looked into the eyes of a brown, anybody that had brown eyes.
and I think now, because the world has changed so much, Dad's perceived as like a very light-skinned person. But you look at photos from back there, and he looked more exotic. He looked more Latin American.
Oh yeah.
He looked
We were babies.
Yeah.
We were 25 years old, but we were so.
So okay, well, I want to get there. But okay, so you grew up on a farm, and I have memories of going back to that farm, maybe like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old.
Route 1, Newfound Road. Leicester, North Carolina.
But my memories are really funny because, I experienced your foster parents, who are really like your parents, in just the most hilarious way, right?
So
By the time I got around, Theodore and Ruth were pretty old.
Theodore Roosevelt
Davis. And Theodore
Ruth Sini Davis
was hilarious.
He was.
And one time, a core memory of mine was it was pouring down rain and just storming outside. And, I'm a little kid, and I'm loving being at Grandpa's house, and you're trying to help me, like, not make Theodore mad, because he hasn't.
You were like 2 or 3 years old.
No.
You're 3, 4.
I don't know. I was big enough to go outside.
Yeah. You were.
And then one of the cows escaped.
Yeah.
He like got free, got out of the gates.
Into the field, yeah.
Into like the field, but really it's kind of like almost a hillside.
And it was pouring rain.
So, Theodore's out there trying to drive this cow back into the gates.
It's crazy.
I'm out there trying to help him, and he's yelling at me, go back inside, and you're yelling at me, come back inside, and I'm like, no, I'm going to help him. And I see Juno do these, like my niece Juno and your granddaughter, like do these outlandish things, and I'm like, oh, is that the way I was? In those moments, and it was hilarious because I think I made it worse. I think I drove the cow further up the hill.
I loved it. I loved every minute. And I was yelling, and Theodore was yelling, and you were yelling in defiance. No, I'm gonna do this. It was a perfect memory. It was
hilarious, and it was just like I have so many great memories of your dad.
And then he would throw you in the tractor and just drive off.
And then, I think your sister, who at the time, maybe I'm collecting memories and bring them into the same. Renee, who I love, she had the house across the street, like a little bit,
Yeah, she lived down the street for a while, yeah.
And she had convinced me, like, hey, I come from LA. Like, I grew up in a great house, but LA houses have small little yards. And so she goes, hey, I'll pay you $20 to mow my lawn. I was like,
oh, this is later, yeah.
I was like, this is later. A few years later, right? I'm like, absolutely. $20, that's like gold to me. I've never seen $20. $20 to my name. Realizing Renee swindled me. Her yard is about the size of a football field. It wasn't a yard, it was a field.
Yeah.
So she gives me this little lawnmower and goes, all right, go for it. And I'm cutting. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And I think I was out there for like 4 or 5 hours, and she's like,
Yeah.
just kidding, buddy. Like, I knew you never could cut this thing. Here's $20. But
So good.
I spent all day out there. And so I just remember going and experiencing these things that, you had grown up around, and it was so nostalgic for me and so like pivotal and so strong, like such a strong memory and core memories of my life. Because you grow up in Los Angeles in the suburbs, you don't really have an understanding. Like I went from where you guys were in the projects every day in East Los Angeles helping build this church, and then the juxtaposition was like you grew up on a farm, which is the complete opposite environment and ecosystem. There might have been 7 human beings in an apartment in East Los Angeles, and there might have been 7 people in 5 square miles in Leicester, North Carolina. So what was that like? Like, what was you're one of the most imaginative people. You're one of the most creative people I've ever met. You were always teaching us to be more creative and helping us be more creative.
It was all birthed there.
You were always that person.
Yeah.
You never bought us the thing we wanted. You always bought us the thing that would challenge us. You always buy us the Lego set or the thing that was like more interesting, and you were pushing our creativity. But what was behind that? Like, did that go back to the farm days of growing up on a farm and having to like entertain yourself?
My imagination was really birthed there because I think there was no like counseling therapy for childhood trauma. So I escaped to my imagination. When the monsters would come at night just to rob all of my peace, because I couldn't sleep as a child because all of my mom's voices, the pain of it would all come back. And I just remember laying on the bed, the windows, the curtains were always open, and the moon would visit me. The moon was always there at my window, I felt like. And I would I started dreaming, and I would tell myself stories. I would create stories. In the day, I would do that as I was like roaming the mountain or doing something of a chore, I would turn it into something imaginative. And then I discovered I just like, I could be anything. I could be anything other than what my reality was. And so I would go to the barn, and when I discovered that I thought I loved the idea of being a teacher, I would go to the barn, I would set up a whole classroom in the cow stall until Ruth would come and say, it's a fire risk, get all of this out of here. And I'm like, but I have my chalkboard all set up and the desks are all set up and I'm ready here and I'm teaching. And I talked to myself endlessly. But I also found out that Theodore Roosevelt would talk to himself in the field.
Wait, Theodore, your dad?
Yeah, he would talk to himself.
It also could be.
I know. It's Mr. Davis. I would call him Mr. Davis. And then that he would also talk to himself in the field. So talking to myself with my class, imaginary class, I always had imaginary everybody. And it was just understood that Kim talks to herself. And to this day, I talk to myself.
But I feel like that's so much more normalized.
It is now, but it was not then. You were just crazy. You were crazy then. Yeah. But I thought people that talked to themselves didn't have real friendships.
Maybe you were crazy. Like, think about it. Farm girl, grew up in the projects, into the foster system, in a farm, walks across the street, gives her life to Jesus, builds schools in Africa, lives in LA, built the church that probably redefined modern churches in Christianity.
That was your dad.
No, that was...
There's your dad. That was us. But I'll tell you, it's because of this. It's because of this. And I cry because it's so...
you say that's
I'm
dad,
I cry. You know why I cry?
Hold on.
It's what do you call that? An unexamined life. I'm like, I'm always publicly just examining my story. But it's like, it's tender still.
What do you mean? Like the past? How you grew up or just...
Everything is
what?
so tender because I'm grateful that I made it through to this part where I get to enjoy it. And to see the fruit. What was the question again?
The question was, maybe you were... It wasn't a question. It was me... kind of playing along the lines of like, maybe you were crazy.
I am
crazy. It's a crazy thought to go. You could come from whatever you come from. You came from nothing to the life we built, and by no means are we you know, do we have everything figured out?
No.
But you had on your heart as that little girl teaching in the barn that you wanted to be a teacher. You wanted to go to Africa, and you wanted to.
I wanted to teach.
And you were, and you did. You didn't. And now you go to Africa and you build schools.
For 30 years. It's like, it's so crazy because, I learned this, and a hard lesson. One, that God will do everything he promises he will do. But he refuses to do the things he has commanded us to do. And what he commanded me to do was to stay in school and not quit. Not like, I'd never seen anybody graduate from school in our family. In all of your aunts and uncles, nobody graduated from like high school. So just not to quit high school. So just stay, Kim, moving forward. Nobody ever taught me that. I felt like I found it spiritually in the scriptures, just being and not running and just staying beyond what I ever witnessed. So that's why we don't run away, we stay, we run too. And so then the second profound thing that God taught me was that the possible will stay impossible until somebody takes action. And that's on me. Action is everything. So you can show me your faith, and you can say you have faith and that you're waiting on God, and God is, you can say that. But if it doesn't follow action, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make anybody not hungry. It doesn't make anybody have stable educational opportunities. It doesn't matter. So if we're not acting and moving forward, the impossible just stays impossible. But God said, I will make it happen, but only when I see you activated. And then just staying, that last thing that I feel like just revolutionized my journey moving forward, and it became the thing that made me more mature, was just that the possibility of building or changing a life or doing anything is that when you own it, when you take responsibility, then the opportunity starts. The opportunity will only start when you take responsibility. And then the impossible becomes possible.
I think that's
happens every day.
I love that.
I have to keep focused on that, or I just lose my way. I'm just like,
Okay, so we're jumping around a lot.
We are jumping around.
So you grew up on a farm.
Chaos. Yeah.
You graduated high school. You went to Erwin High School.
Yeah, Claude Erwin. Yeah.
And then you married
an Erwin. Is that crazy?
And then how you guys? At one point, he went to high school, finished high school in North Carolina. But how far was he from you?
Drove by my house at one point. We realized it. This is the track that you took to get when you were in the mountains of North Carolina. On one of your journeys, you went right by my house, and there I was.
That's amazing.
And then many years later,
you got a full ride to Gardner-Webb University?
Gardner-Webb University. And I
Scholarship?
studied education. So a full ride. This is the thing. I always say this, that the government can never save us. So I don't I'm like a political atheist in that sense. But the government was there when I needed it to get to college. So it's like the hand of God used all the resources. He combined all those resources to get me to school. And then from that school, I learned a lot of joy. By that time, I was very, very unhappy. Very, very, just very unhappy. But I would move and I would continue to move forward. But when I got to college and I met people who were genuinely, they loved Jesus. And they were happy. I started like shedding some of that like religion off of me. It's saying, okay, so I'm free for a reason. And I started living in that freedom and that, so that after that I went to seminary. I'm like, okay, let's
go. So
go.
you went from North Carolina to Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
Where you did what?
I enrolled in a crazy, degree that only men get at that time. It was only open really to men.
Okay.
And I
What
said,
was
I
the
want to.
degree?
It was called a Master's of Divinity.
Okay. And it did.
theology. Was
Yeah.
studying theology, and it was. I so often regretted doing that, making that decision. I could have been, living my life, but I stuck with it. I said, I'm not leaving. I'm not quitting. I want to quit. I met your father. We just started this journey together. And I didn't think, I knew he was the one. He did not know he was the one. So, I was in the relationship by myself for a long time. And then we said, okay.
Did he ask you out on a date?
Oh, yeah, we dated.
No,
we
but
dated.
like, what was that first, like, how did he ask?
With Erwin?
Yeah, who else? I don't want to know about anybody
else.
else.
Money. He had no money. And I have to say that because he had no money, nothing. And I'm like, I had this bank account. So I did not want to be poor my life. And so I knew that whoever I married was not going to be poor.
Yeah. You wanted to break the cycle.
Yeah. So, but I wasn't like dramatic like women today. Like they go after, well, we won't go there. But anyway.
No, go there. I think it's good. Let's go there.
Yeah. Well, so I wasn't like altering my life for anyone. I wanted someone in the path of, we're going to do this. I wanted to say, I'm going to follow God with all my heart. I completely take me anywhere you want to. I'm begging God, use me, call me. It's like a calling. I was raised in the Baptist church, and special people had the calling. Yeah. But I was begging God for that calling. If that was on somebody's life, use me, and I was going. So I went to prepare for going. And I would be in Africa. I would be somewhere doing education.
That's what your dream was.
Oh, that's why that's where I was going.
You felt like that was on your heart.
That's what on my heart. That's what I was prepared to do. My pastor raised me like that. And he was like my, Jackie Collins, God bless him. He was like my spiritual father. He, was so much part of my survival, his family, his whole family. And so they were all in our wedding.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I brushed over it. I added that detail. But so you lived on a farm, and then your father sold the land that essentially was across from the house. What, like 25 yards, 50 yards? Not very far. Mm-hmm. And a church was built.
The church was there.
Was the church already there?
The church was there.
So when you got there, the church was already there.
The pastor's house was there.
Okay.
Then a field, and then our home. So then I would every day walk across that field, knock on the door to the pastor's home, be greeted by his wife and children, and just that was my taste of life as normal. There were no foster kids there except me. There was a real family, and they would sit down for hot meals. And that was just living a country life.
Here's my thing. You're one of the funniest people I've ever met. And it makes a lot of sense, like hearing about the way you were raised, and then now reflecting back on the way I was raised. Because in our household, how many sick days do we get a year?
None. We get no sick days a year because if you can,
because if
you can walk, you can go to school.
I have this infamous memory of, here's my thing is, you were always the best mom. You were always the best caretaker. But you were also like very much a realist about, you have to work. You got to show up. Mm-hmm. You got to read the books. You have to get the grades. Education will get you out of poverty and keep you out of poverty. And then you had me, who I wasn't great at school, and you were a teacher. And so I was probably driving you up the wall. But the thing I always laughed about was like, I would always say we only got one sick day a year. You were the best, most loving, comforting mom for those 24 hours. But on that 25th hour, it was, I don't really care. You can throw up at school. You'll be okay.
You'll be okay.
You can cough at school. They'll be fine.
I could hear Theodore say, I missed in 30 years of working at this, at the mill that he worked at, the textile mill, one day in 30 years. So every day I went to school in the Davis household.
Yeah.
Year after year after year after year after, I think it was 7 years. At the end of every year, I would bring my perfect attendance certificate home.
So you had told me that when I was younger, and then I went to, this little school in Montebello, which is East LA, and they told me, if you go to school every day from kindergarten to, is it 8th grade at the time, you'll get a perfect attendance record certification. I went home and I told you, and with school, you were always like, yes, yes. You want to do more school? Yes. You were the type of mom that when summer hit, it wasn't summer. If you haven't finished your history textbook, you finish it. You read the whole thing. If you haven't gone through English textbook, you're going to finish the whole thing. So most people had a summer. I had extracurricular reading. And then you were like, okay, you're done with that history book. Here's next year's history book.
Do you love reading?
I love reading.
Do you love history?
I love history.
Are you
But I don't
intelligent?
know if I love it or if you planted inside of my brain.
Just the act of the
I
art
love history.
of like
Yeah.
the exercise of picking up a book and touching it and feeling the pages.
Yeah,
And
it's
people
magic.
like wonder, like, why have I not gone to a digital Bible? There is like this connection I have to the pages, the connection I have to looking at words and then touching them and turning the pages and interacting. And that's what we get from books, you know, and all of life skills. It's like proximity is everything.
Proximity is everything. And then books are magical. Books just open up a whole different world. And I think you opened me up to that. You know, I was a very different kid and highly OCD and probably seemed like I was autistic at times or off. But you always just you'd always just find a relatable thing. You'd be like, oh, I used to do that on the farm. Or I would be like this when I was a kid. You always were very relatable and always like, okay, well, I would drive you up the wall. Like I knew I did and you were open about that. But you also were someone who would like slow it down and be like, okay, walk me through I say the OCD thing is like a cute thing, but I was heavily obsessive compulsive.
We knew
I had to
that
like
you were struggling.
I had to touch things 30, 40 times.
We
I
knew
thought my
that
whole,
you were struggling.
my life was going to fall apart.
But let me tell you, it's not the perspective that parenting today is just so brilliant. I'm just shocked at how smart people are. They're so well read and thorough. I just didn't know that. We weren't that well read as parents, and we didn't
what would you have read?
But we read you. We read you. And what we found in our bedrooms, we would talk at night and we'd say, but I was like Aaron growing up.
Yeah.
And people would say, why do you touch everything, Kim, like that? Why must you go bend down and touch the ground? Why can't you do this? Why can't you be normal? Why can't you just do this? We turn around and you're like touching the ground. It sounds so ridiculous now, but it was like I couldn't be normal like the other girls were normal. So then your dad said to me, I was just like Aaron growing up. I was just like him. And we're like, okay, if I had an explanation for why I was that way and you did, but why is Aaron like this? Is it hereditary or is it that you're going through trauma? And we had to go down the list. Is he being exposed? Is he somebody getting to him? Is blah, 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 all the things. But what we tried to help have a loving sanctuary as a home, we realized what was happening outside at work and ministry and all this stuff, it was seeping into. Yeah. And you're very, very perceptive.
Yeah, and I was a sensitive kid, you know?
Yeah.
I think you built a lot of toughness in us, but you were also like a very like loving, sweet, warm, and Dad was very loving and sweet and warm. So I think home was like a very beautiful place. But then we also grew up, we didn't grow up in the projects, but we grew up, I would say like we grew up around it. Like your ministry work, your dedication to helping people in the inner city and helping them know Jesus and have a faith and builds and bring some of you guys were two highly educated individuals who were bringing that education to a place where most people don't get access to people who were living inside that realm of education and intelligence. And they were wonderful people, and there were great people in there, and there were really smart people that were drawn to that space in the projects because of what you guys brought. And so
we were in South Dallas, and your dad started leading this church. It was like the physical church had burned down, so that was before us. So then the rebuild.
De Dios?
No, this was the Cornerstone. This is Cornerstone. This is before El Pueblo.
Was it actually a black church?
Yeah, it was. I was in a black choir. I was the only.
You were in a black choir.
But it was like.
Were you the only white person?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, okay.
I was the pastor's wife. So in the South, you're a lot of things. When we were so young, we didn't know what we were supposed to be.
How old were you? when you guys?
We were 20. Well, we got married when we were 25. So your dad was there when he was 24. So
Okay.
then we, graduated and then moved and then we just continued. But I'll tell you, South Dallas was a really difficult place at that time.
Highest murder capita, like 3
Very
to 5 years
difficult.
in a row. It was one of the
Very-
most deadly and
Drugs
dangerous
everywhere, drugs beside us, violence escalating. And that little church, that church building became like a lighthouse for people to come. And we just started opening it up and then lots of things began to happen. We got Patty there, Patty was I was pregnant with you. Patty Loera had been put on a bus in Mexico. Her parents said, "We can't take care of you anymore. Go find your half sister."
Yeah.
And so she ended up in Dallas, found the sister, and then was one night was going to be initiated into a gang. And she decided, okay, I got the initiation, or I could go with Juanita, my friend, to Cornerstone. And for some reason, she decided Cornerstone. And that night, someone was killed being initiated into that gang. And Patty's life was forever altered. And Patty joined our family before you joined us. And
you picked up Patty from her sister's house.
For 2 weeks, we said, we're going to take care of you, Patty, for 2 weeks. We didn't have anything. You didn't have a bedroom because Patty's had the room that you were going to be in.
Yeah.
So when you were born, right after that, Patty was already living with us. And another family had just moved out. And so we had this little tiny house that we were renting, and you were born, and Patty was supposed to we had a place for Patty after 2 weeks. And that place fell apart. And God said to me, you take Patty like the Davises took you. I prepared that, and now I'm preparing you to take Patty because she is you. And we took her in, and she stayed there with us, and then we became a little family. You, me, and Patty, and Erwin. And Erwin, how do we take care of a teenager?
Because she was 16
She was like 15, 16.
She was because I think she would have been turning 16 when I was born.
Did not speak any English, no word of English, and I didn't speak really Spanish.
Does she speak English now?
Yes, she does. She does. Patty. And if she were here, she's the funniest person we know, right?
Okay, a couple of things. No, she's not the funniest person we know. But a couple of things about Patty. So so most people, I don't know that people on this podcast know too much about Patty, but a couple of things. Patty is shorter than you.
Yes.
5 foot nothing on a great day.
Little.
And could you imagine Patty in a gang?
No.
She's the softest, sweetest, kindest, silliest, no conflict.
When Patty...
There's just no way Patty would have been in a gang.
When Patty said, I'm going to follow Jesus, and she wrote her mom in Mexico, can I get baptized? And she said, the mom wrote back, yes. She goes and gets baptized. She comes back and her hair is wet, and her sister says, we're Catholic, and kicked her out on the street. So now she has no place to stay, and she goes knocking on door to door. She had this great resilience about her. Resilience is like my number one thing. If you're determined, you're going to succeed. There's nothing's going to stop you. You were going to find opportunity. So Patty was one of those people. She would knock on the door. She found a place, then she found us, and then 2 weeks turned into 11 years. She literally left our home when she got married.
You helped her graduate high school in Dallas, and then she
graduate high school. We said we would like to tell you that she's not legal, and we had nothing to do with that. But I'm not going to let this child go out on the street. And the high school welcomed her in, and she learned English in 1 year. She learned English.
I want to point that out because I think
college.
I wanted you to keep going, but I think we live in a political world right now where Texas is seen as this very anti-immigration state. But we were in Texas, and those people were good people.
They're great people in Texas.
I think the reality is that political conversation right now is not so much that some of the most welcoming people in the world are Texans, right? Maybe. But it was more of I think you look at it and it's for the last 30, 40 years, it's an exhaustion of, I think, the kindness of the state going, this is now becoming insane. We can't actually handle this. But I look back and I go, I was always treated well by people in Texas.
Oh, people in Texas were the best.
My whole life, I was like, I'm a Texan. Dad's like, you don't know anything about Texas.
They're great.
You were born there.
You were born there.
I was born there in Dallas, 1988.
I loved when you were born. It was the best day. And Patty was with us. Then Mariah came. And then this whole family just like, and all the while, we didn't have anything. We were making it on nothing. And the churches on the other side of town that were sponsoring us, they just filled in all the gaps for us. They took care of Patty's education. They took care of Patty's Christmas gifts. They were there for us. And then came the day we actually bought our first home. And we thought that was impossible. But in the, you were born in what year? You were born in 88 and Mariah 92. No, Mariah's 92, but 88.
Me?
I don't remember you. In 88, we purchased a house.
How much did you buy that house for?
We bought the house for $96,000, brand new, 1,200 square feet, brand new, in a beautiful neighborhood. And that was the first place that you lived. You were a baby.
Insane.
I mean, that was the second place you lived. We moved right out of that dump and then into that house. But Patty had never had a home. She'd never had her own bedroom.
The house in Mesquite? Or was that after?
Yeah, there was Pleasant Grove and then Mesquite. Okay. And so Mesquite became the house that we, like, when we moved, because our calling was always to California. And when we moved, I sat there and I looked at all those boxes and I said, I don't want to be poor again, because I was pregnant with Mariah. We were leaving. We had no insurance. We didn't have a job, really. We're just going to go and serve the church in California. And when we sold the house, we sold it to a criminal. And so then we couldn't get the money out of the house. So it was like so locked up and messed up, but we were adamant.
Did you ever get the money?
Yeah, we did. It was like the miracle of God,
He
no
just
criminal.
showed up one day and gave the money?
FBI came looking for him.
What?
Yes, and we gave him the testimony, like, put him away. We want our money. And they did. And they gave us our money. Yeah. Yeah, you don't.
I didn't know that story.
You're not cheating.
You're not cheating.
You're not cheating.
So much life has happened.
Jesus, girl.
I feel like, what'd you say? Said Jesus' girl?
You're not going to cheat Jesus' girl. I was like, anyway.
But I feel like God's always had his hand on your life.
Always.
Like, you say that jokingly, like, you're not cheating God's girl. But this is like we don't really talk about this. I think I've jokingly mentioned it in the past. But it's like actually scary that people who've tried to steal from you guys, they're like, not in a mean way. Like, not that you guys ever wished ill. From the business that happened, 10, 15 years ago with Dad, to back with that guy with the FBI, like, it's never gone well for people who try to steal from you. Were you guys cognizant, or like, did you realize that in the moment that like God just always was protecting you guys, or was it something that like later on in life you guys look back and went, wow, we were always protected, we were always taken care of?
Always. You can't track until you are very aware. That's why living in an awake life, you really have to track these things to realize, oh, there's something chasing me. There's this love of God that's chasing me, that's protecting me. And I remember my first day showing up for student teaching. My first day. My little 1973, I think, yellow Ford Pinto, and I drove, brand new, but it was used, but I was brand new for me. And I drove it to school, and the sun was in my face, and I'm, kind of a really new driver, and I was nervous about showing up at the school. And I drove past a train track, and 5 seconds after I passed, the train passed. And there was no signal. The train almost killed me.
That's insane.
But I feel like I've dodged things like that.
So what was that like? Were you just driving, you look in the rear view, and then the train just goes?
Yeah. The feel of the train hit me.
Because you can
like
feel
a Ford Pinto's not that strong.
No, that thing, it
the
would have been
It was the worst car on the market at that time. And that,
it was a
but
lemon.
anyway, and then so it was literally yellow. Anyway, I felt that, but I've also felt that many other times. Oh, this was, I just barely missed this. Wow. In China, we were at the Great Wall, and I had a team.
How long ago was this?
This was like forever ago. And we
Okay.
had just been there. We had flown into China. The trip was a mess. And we end up without really adequate security, really no security. And we end up in the middle of nowhere. And we've just left with these students. The Great Wall of China, was spending a day with them. And we go the opposite way because we don't have adequate guidance. We go the opposite way in trying to get back to transportation. And the farmer that stopped us said, if you don't make the train that's a mile away, you're going to be stuck right here all night long. And now everybody's running on the train tracks for a mile and a half.
You're running on the train tracks?
And we're and we see the train. And we're like, we're going to miss the train, and we're going to be here. We don't know where we are. And so all of us, there was like 20 of us, and we were running. And I remember the beauty of jumping on that train, being hoisted up and falling right into a cattle car. And a Chinese man was yelling in Chinese, get off. And then we jump off the other side and then run to the people, and we're like, and that's kind of been like all over the world, be it one time or the other. Just like
these wild adventures. I'm sitting here as we're talking, and I'm like, because we're both a little bit non-linear in our storytelling, and we've jumped from like you being kid. And
it's
then
okay, right? Who needs linear?
No, it's absolutely okay. But I think, I hope, I don't even know what time it is. We've been going for an hour. We've been going for an hour. So I want to take a break, and I want to pause this. But I want to just say thank you, because I hope this is the beginning of a few different episodes that we can dive into, and you're our most requested guest.
Really?
Yes.
I've never done a podcast ever in my life.
And I'm so grateful that you decided to do it with me.
I'm awkward.
No, you're wonderful. And I think, one of my dreams, and I get the privilege of working with Dad day to day, and I love working with Dad. He's my best friend. But so much of what we do is for you. Because the reason why we try to make money is we can do all the things that you want to do.
Please.
I know. We're getting there.
So this is the thing.
Wait, hold on.
Wow.
Because we got to wrap this up.
I was about to do the thing.
What was the thing?
The thing is why I came on here anyway.
What was the thing?
It wasn't to talk about my past. Why did it become the whole thing about the past?
It's not about the past, about you. I just want people to get to know you.
That's so kind.
Yeah.
It's all about relationships, right?
I don't know about that, but for now, I just wanted people to get a little glimpse into your life. And one, because I have to go, and I know that you have to go, but will you do this again with me?
I don't know. I think no.
You think no?
How many years has it been since you started
this?
It's
been 8, and I'm not going to wait another 8.
All right. I would come back. I would come back.
What are you doing tomorrow?
But
I'm going to do this again tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow.
We do it again? Let's do it.
But I feel like I'm not going to do hair and makeup again tomorrow.
Okay, next week. Like, I'm back in a week and a half.
No, I'm saying like take a break and let's do the rest of it today. I gotta go. I gotta go too.
I gotta go too. But I feel like this episode is unfinished, and we could sit and talk for like 8 hours.
Okay, let me just do this part.
What is it about?
Mosaic Education Initiative.
Well, I think we have to do a whole episode on MEI, because I think, one, you're a new character unlock for all of our audience. And I think people have been waiting for this for a long time, and we've done the roller coaster of our emotions.
Okay, then I'm going to do this part.
No, wait, hold on. So
can we do this part?
Okay, do this part.
One of the things I learned about it was only from you and Mariah.
Okay.
Mariah said a couple of years ago, she said, "Mom, you're crazy, but because you're crazy, you defy the odds." Mm. And we talked a little bit about being crazy, right? Mm. And I think you guys have told me I'm crazy all my life, but you guys meant it. And I took it as an insult. And now that's the beauty of being this age. It can be like a gift.
It's a gift.
It's a gift.
Yeah.
So in defying the odds, because I kind of like wrote some declarations of me defying the odds.
Let's do it.
Number 1.
Please.
Let me be what I was not given.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2. Let me have what cannot be bought. And let me be the giver of divine unconditional love in any room. Let me do the hard things in hard places. Let me conference with you, God. Let me go and God do what is absolutely impossible and let the impossible become as natural as breathing. So I'll have a whole list of like,
Keep going. No, keep
no,
going.
really?
Keep
Oh,
going.
really? Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
going.
really? Then let me create a disturbance in others' loneliness. Let the ridiculous in me bring you glory. Let me be sharp to eternal things. Let me be free. Let me be scary crazy. Spirit, anoint me, come over me. Yeah, I got number 13. Okay, let me Spirit, anoint me, come over. Let me be present in your presence. And let us be wild with courage and end up in a mental state of pure faith and wild love.
That one was a run-on sentence.
Well, I put two together. And we defy the odds. We defy the odds every day. Please turn my anxiety into prayer and my hiding into dancing and my sorrow into the sacred. And in Jesus' name, my mind will not be locked because my present reality is defying the odds.
Can I have that?
Yes. What, you want it really?
Yeah.
My paper? Look, the reality in the present is this. Coming through what we've come through, my sister and I have a brother who has dementia, a sister who has dementia, another sister who has dementia. And I had to realize with my sister, as we've traveled this journey and had this new family, and she's had a family, and we've raised our kids well, that the reality is dementia is chasing us. And I said, I won't have it. My mind will not be locked. Because this era of my time is like, God, there's never a time when you're not doing the impossible. I cannot go down this way. And so we make the changes we need to make the changes with. We live the life that God's called us to live. We're stronger people because of it. We get out of our stuff, but there's growing. There's maturity. And we always live in that space of defying odds. And that's why I invest in the people I do. And that's why I invest at Mosaic. And hey, I like your podcast.
Okay, so this is, I think one.
I'm getting ready to go, so go ahead.
Okay, if you're listening to this podcast, we want to say thank you. And can you just say thank you to everybody? Just.
All right, thank you, everybody.
And you're going to come back. You're coming back.
You know what I'd like to do?
We're going to do another episode just on
MEI.
Mosaic Educational Initiative.
Yeah.
We have to do a whole episode on that because I want to talk about the origin of that, from like dream in the farmland to like the actualization of building a school that is honestly,
crazy.
It's insane. Like that school in the US would be incredible.
Right.
The school in Malawi.
Yeah.
I mean, that's who you are. It's insane.
It's so beautiful. I can't wait.
That's what's crazy.
It's so crazy. And right in the
You
middle
need
of
a little bit of
farmland.
crazy to defy the odds.
Yes, you do. And all those students that we send to college in Malawi and in Bangladesh and Indonesia and in the United States and LA and around the world, the 100 students that we're sending to college, we are saying we believe in you. We'll walk the journey with you because education is a great path.
Okay, so next episode we're going to dive into the MEI initiative that you have built. Thank you guys for listening to this podcast. It's close to my heart. It might be my favorite one. I can't literally stop crying.
You think?
If you're listening, share it with a friend.
I'm proud of you.
Your story needs to be told across the world. We need to make this thing go viral.
You're
Rate and
kind.
review this episode. You can subscribe to the YouTube. You can follow her on Kim is Alive on Instagram. And you really is. You are alive. You're just one of the. I've begged you to change that, and you're like, nope. This is who I am. Kim is alive. I'm alive.
But I'm so grateful for you to be here, in this place.
So thank you for coming on.
And the world knows you, but I know you more.
And we'll get into that next episode. Okay, I love you.
Bye.
Thank you.